How's it going, John?
It's going well, Eric. How are you tonight?
I'm good. So, I'm having some kitchen remodel done.
I'm very excited for you.
And it's a guy that you recommended to me.
Uh-huh.
I found out yesterday that he's also a bee guy. And he talked me up bees. I'm like, no wonder John likes him so much.
That's a relatively new thing. I think he's in his second year.
Okay.
This is the same person that did my roof, which was a year and a half ago now at this point. And at that point he was like, so I got these beehives. What do I do with them? Anyway, so.
Yeah.
But I do occasionally see him on the Tualatin Valley Beekeepers Association calls, and which I missed last week. I just can't keep everything. I really need to put them in my calendar. I don't know why I haven't. Anyway. But yeah, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. New kitchen incoming.
Yeah.
Slowly.
Yeah. Keeping some of the appliances, replacing some of the less useful ones. It's even he referred to it as a small job, but it will be big to us because it kind of changes. It gives us a lot more cabinet space, which we are currently lacking. So we have stuff in the garage and stuff in the basement. It'd be nice to have all the kitchen stuff in the kitchen. So
I think it is awesome. Yeah. So. You've been in my kitchen, so you know that there's a this person did our kitchen too, and when he did, normally they would stop the kitchen cabinets at like 9 feet or whatever it is, and I don't know like how tall our ceiling is, but we were like no, go all the way to the ceiling. You could put it. Yep. It's okay if I have to get onto a chair to get up there. It's less to dust, and I can just stick. What's the sort of stuff that's up there is like, I don't know. We've got this gigantic plastic carrying case for muffins that will hold like 36 muffins or cupcakes, for when the kids were young, and you need to take a whole bunch of cupcakes somewhere. And
stuff that you use once a year.
Yeah, exactly. The roasting pans for the Thanksgiving turkey.
Exactly.
It's okay. Get out a stepladder twice when you need to get up there.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway,
we're doing the same thing, all the way to the ceiling. Just
yeah, more space, better.
Yes.
Anyway, awesome. I will look forward to some pictures at some point.
Me too.
Yeah. That's cool. Sort of semi-speaking bees. That was one of my intro updates, because I think I went into this past weekend saying I was going to see grafting, and I was excited that I might have up to 11 queens. I did not have 11 queens. I had 4 potential.
Okay.
So
what was the cause of the miscount? Over exuberance or misclassification?
So
there were 11, but
I'm
by
go
the time you got to it, there were 4?
First and foremost, inexperience. I'm going to go with second most. So I am super disappointed that I thought that I was like, ooh, I got like maybe a 1/3, and in reality, no, it's more like 8% or something like that. I guess that would be 11%. So second of all, maybe I just didn't know what to look for, and I did not brush the bees off. So when I kind of pulled up the grafting frame to look at how many cells the bees were drawing down, the indicator I thought was if there's a whole bunch of bees on the cell and they're building wax to pull a cell down, that means that the larva in there is viable, and they're feeding it and they're creating a cell out of it. But couple possibilities there. the first and most probable is that I just didn't know what to look for, and that, I counted 11 where there were bees and wax, and really they just weren't there. I think another possibility that is not too improbable too is that, one of the things you need to do with the queen builder colony is give them just scads of resources. And so if they didn't have enough resources, they may have just gone ahead and chosen, okay, hey, these are the best cells, and just like tore down the others or never completed them. So just not enough resources to feed 11, just feed the 4, and they'll actually consume the eggs. The worker bees will consume eggs and larvae if they don't have enough resources, if they're hungry.
Cannibal-like?
Yeah.
Huh.
I fed them. They had syrup or sugar syrup. They had pollen patty. I had given them frames of stuff, but it's a non-zero possibility, I think. But regardless, net of it is, I didn't know what I was going to do if I actually got 11. I was actually like panicked. I texting a couple friends, hey, if I have extras, do you want some cells? I could cope with 4. So, besides which, I don't even know if those 4 will actually survive, right? I mean, I take those 4, I put them in individual cells or individual, I think I might have talked about it last year, but the Queen Castle, which is where I take a box and divide it into 4, and then they each have just 2 frames with the individual entrance. So, in another 3 weeks or so, I can check and see if those cells hatch out, if the queen went and flew and mated and it has come back and is laying eggs, because all 3 of those are possibilities for failure. And so just because you have 4 cells doesn't mean you'll wind up with 4 queens or 4 mated queens or 4 well-mated queens that are laying good eggs. So it's all a funnel game.
Okay.
So,
well, I appreciate your efforts to improve the bee population.
Yeah, we'll see. I have anywhere from 5 to 13 colonies. And I don't know how many. It's like a Heisenberg.
So 13 minus 5 is not 4.
I know. There were other experiments in progress.
For another podcast.
I also appreciate your ability to do math quickly in your head.
Math.
Yeah. So, anyway,
it didn't involve algebra, so we're good.
Anyway, so that's fun. So what else fun happened this weekend? Anything else?
So my basement was crowded with college kids.
Ooh.
So my middle daughter had a bunch of friends come over. Her friends from high school and some of her college roommates and college friends drove out and stayed in our basement for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 4 days, 3.5 days.
Yeah.
And it was actually a blast. It was a lot of fun. Just, I kind of stayed out of their way and let them do their thing. And
sure,
they got to tour where we live. They're from, I think all of them are from Utah, various areas in Utah. And I don't know if any of them had been to Oregon before. So it was great fun. Having a whole bunch of people over and hanging out and having them go tour around. Yeah. It was fun. And then the thing I actually threw a link in to the intro on is my oldest daughter, who just graduated in animation.
Mm-hmm.
We went and saw the new DreamWorks movie, The Bad Guys.
Okay.
And she was giving me insider info on how this was all done, because it's similar to Into the Spider-Verse. Was an animated picture that kind of broke the mold of what an animated picture should look like.
Mm-hmm.
Visually. It was visually distinct. And The Bad Guys created a whole new kind of take on similar to that to try to add and put in some 2D animation into the 3D. You know, when you think of Pixar, you think of very smooth lines, polished, you know, flowing haired, you know, there is a definite style of animation, right? Well,
Sure.
The bad guys was this new kind of handmade, a look of a handmade, hand illustrated, hand painted animation. I don't know how to describe it. Right? My oldest could probably come and tell you all. Anyways, it was a fun show, and so if you have, I'm trying to think if it was scary, depending on how old your kids are. If they're really little, I mean, it was the bad guys, and they were, you know, a wolf and the bad guys, but it was a lot of fun.
I remember the preview.
So I don't know if I would, if you're into animation and things animated and want to see something visually cool, sure, go see it in the theater. Otherwise, definitely catch it when it comes on whatever streaming service.
For wherever it is on streaming.
Yeah, because visually it was really cool. And I linked an article in there that just kind of goes through. They talk to the things that DreamWorks, they invented new techniques because all this animation stuff is computer programming. So they created and built new programs to do things and render things differently than normal. So the whole article was kind of cool too.
Just that you're reminding me of dinner conversation last night was my older boy is going to be taking robotics next year. And
Fun.
but they were sorry, that's kind of like backstory, but the specific topic was in engineering. The younger boy was complaining about having to program a Sphero, which is like one of their last projects, little ball that, you know, you have to write a program to have it go through a maze and stuff like that. Okay. And they're like all complaining and, oh my gosh, it's the programming, it's the worst. They, you know, just hard to do. And you know, my wife's like, aren't you planning on doing robotics next year? Well, yeah, but you know, I'm interested in the mechanical bits, not the programming bits. And both my wife and I are like, there's going to be a lot of programming in robotics. Like that's like, it's kind of different from mechanical engineering. And anyway, he's like, well, no, I plan on getting my partner to do that work. And my wife's like, well, you better choose your partners very wisely.
Yeah.
And as a, you know, as an old developer, I actually, my beard is relatively gray. I don't quite have a neck beard, but I'm like, programming's where it's at. You got to learn it. You got to learn it sometime. And yes, it can be very frustrating. I saw a link or a tweet or something like that today that was like, you know, what's the common trait of developers was something like unimaginable ability to deal with frustration or something like that. I don't know. It was one of those sort of things that, like, you know, you have to have an iron constitution for, well, that didn't work.
Yep.
I don't know.
Failure is your friend.
and yeah, I will say on the podcast, you know, I appreciate you sometimes like, well, let me just Eric Wheeler this, which is basically go back to first principles and like walk one half step at a time through everything.
That's right.
And like, yep, that's exactly right. Because you cannot make any, which is why I get myself into trouble so many times. So I'm like, oh, okay. Like I jump to the end and I'm like, no, you cannot do that. Anyway, pretty funny though.
Yeah.
Pretty funny.
Good times.
Yeah. I will just, while you're on movies, though, I will say I was really glad we waited for streaming to see The Lost City, which was the recent Sandra Bullock.
Is that on streaming now?
Channing Tatum? Tanning? What's the guy's name? What? Okay. It's not supposed to be that funny.
Sorry, it's hilarious because my boy, he watches Good Mythical Morning, and one of the guys on Good Mythical Morning, Rhett, cannot say Channing Tatum's name. And they have a whole YouTube video of him mispronouncing his name. And that's what reminded me of this. Because I'm like, I need to share this with my boy. See, it's not easy for it's not easy for old
I'm not
guys
to go
to
with
say
that's
this
a
name right.
pronunciation thing. I think it's just a memory thing. Anyway, a solid okay movie, good for streaming.
Which streaming service is it on? Do you know?
Hold on. I think it was on Paramount Plus.
Okay. It's not one I have.
Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure.
All right. Anyway.
All right. Yeah. So, into the post-intro topics.
Well, so the topic I brought is actually Mikko Hipponen. He's a Finnish researcher, I think. Very prolific on Twitter. I followed him forever. He is the chief research officer at WithSecure. He gave a presentation at the Sphere Cybersecurity Conference and basically offered a bunch of predictions of cybersecurity in the future. And I just thought it was interesting. I just want to kind of go through some of the things he kind of points out. Right now we're getting close to society being as dependent on connectivity as we are on electricity. There are places that don't have it, but if the power goes out in places, a lot of things grind to a halt. And so he's, the future, the more advanced the nation is, the more dependent they are on electricity, the more dependent they're going to become on being connected, the more things are going to stop functioning once you're not connected. I think for a number of things, we're already there. But that was one.
It's true.
His next one I thought was funny, was I'll just read the quote here. In 15 to 20 years, we will look at decisions today, scratching our heads and wondering what the hell we were thinking when we decided to connect everything to the same public internet. And he's referring to IoT devices, and he refers to them and their generally outdated firmware security problems as IoT asbestos, which I thought
I love it. I love it. Nice
that
analogy.
Was good. Nice analogy. So he talks about that we're probably going to move, which actually triggered some thoughts for me is, well, how would you have IoT devices that do what they do, because there is definite consumer advantage there, but aren't connected to the internet? What happened? How do you do that? So an interesting problem to solve. He talked a little bit about cybercrime, continuing to become a booming business, to the point where your the wealthiest cybercrime gangs are just going to start hiring. They're going to go recruiting and hiring.
They are already. They have programming tests. They have HR departments. They have tech support lines.
And they'll just keep investing in their business, but it just happens to be a criminal organization. So it's in my head, I'm like, this is the future James Bond, bad guy.
Yeah.
And then he talks a little bit about AI and how artificial intelligence is going to be adapted by cyber criminals. It already is, but it'll get even further. And so, his point is, we're going to use AI to take over a lot of manual labor. Cyber criminals are going to take over, start leveraging AI. And so we're going to have good guy AI battling bad guy AI. We're just not even have humans in the middle, and it'll be a clash between those. And
yeah,
he says the reason why cyber criminals to this point have not adopted AI as much is not because they don't want to, because we have a skill shortage. You need more people that are willing to go to the dark side with those skill sets.
I think okay, so, and I haven't read this thing, but I guess the other thing I would say is that at the moment, it's not required. like,
Sure.
if there was 100% efficacy on everything that wasn't that, there'd be more of an incentive to go even farther. And I don't know that it's required yet.
Yeah.
So it's interesting though. And sorry, one other comment on that last one too. That is a known field of research. So if anybody listening to this is interested in learning more about it, I mean, this is something that we do in our day job. You can Google adversarial AI, and so making models resilient to in the presence of adversaries is a thing.
Yeah.
Is a thing.
So I'm on a tangent on this one because my boy and I, right, all your cylinders or digital assistants that listen to your voice, they do machine learning, right? They try to learn what you're saying. They learn how you do it.
Yep.
He has discovered, and we have discovered, that we can say gobbledygook, like just make grunts and noises, ask the cylinder to, and then just start making all sorts of weird, strange noises, and then see what the cylinder interprets it as.
Okay.
And in my head, I'm like, dude, we're doing some adversarial machine learning here. We're forcing junk into the system, or maybe call it AI fuzzing.
Yeah.
Right. And anyways,
Everybody
so he gets a kick out of it because we text message each other by just saying random nonsensical things and see what Siri translates that to and then sends the text. It can be occasionally very awkward because it interprets some things.
I don't think this said what you think it said.
Yeah. Anyways, so that just reminded me of when it was adversarial machine learning stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
The next bullet he points out is, and it's a shift that has started to happen, and we're already seeing a lot of it, but he calls it security by PlayStation. He calls it room to grow, where you buy a compute device, but that compute device is locked down to do certain tasks. So, we're already seeing a lot of that.
Yeah.
Chromebooks, iPads, your phones, PlayStation, Xbox, all these kind of things are general compute devices, but they're locked down. And he expects to see kind of more of this walled garden computing systems because it does improve security. There's the negative side to it, but it does have some positives.
Improve security.
He expects to see that area to grow.
For large providers that provide security updates for an extended period of time. And, Apple does a pretty good job of this. Google, sometimes for some of the built-in apps, but not so much for all the, varies by phone. It'll be interesting to see how long, like, the PS3 receives security updates. I'm not sure about that, but yeah.
What do you do with these things that?
Yeah.
Your IoT asbestos.
What's the detritus? IoT detritus.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. It's an interesting thing, and yeah.
And the thing he finishes up on, at least in this article, is, with the trajectory of technology continuing to become faster, more powerful, cheaper, eventually, and maybe not in our lifetime, but we've all seen Star Trek, The Next Generation, right? At some point, humans will have access to essentially limitless computing for effectively free. Like digital assistants, it's just going to be everywhere. And so if you have unlimited cosmic compute power, what do you do with it? So anyways, I thought it was an interesting, just kind of
space.
Yeah, well done. I don't know. I just thought it was fun. A fun peek.
That's good.
There.
And
so there you go. That's what I brought this week.
Very consumerish. Very nice. Very nice. Very nice.
I'm a simple guy.
I have a couple. The first one, I don't know. This first article didn't actually have a lot of data in the article, but it is something that we need to keep our eye on, and that is a growing attack surface, let's say, and that is a Windows subsystem for Linux malware. So WSL, there's two versions of it now. You know, the initial WSL was kind of a hack bolt on to the Windows kernel, but the WSL2 is like actually running a separate Linux kernel right next to the Windows kernel, and and the ability to communicate between them. But so there's an article, kind of giving some info from Black Lotus Labs researchers about them tracking more than 100 samples of WSL-based malware since last fall, and that it is, in their opinion, growing in complexity, including the new a couple of samples that actually have a remote access. They said RAT, remote access tool. I always thought that stood for remote access Trojan. So I don't know. I'm going to go with remote access Trojan. But a couple of examples that actually can deploy a remote access tool, Trojan, and then be able to communicate with the command and control server and do other things, download other software, infect some with something else, upload data, etc. And I'd say that this is something that we've been keeping our eye on for a little bit, and is something that you need to start thinking more about. I think that the number of people who will go and install a WSL or a Linux distribution deliberately is probably small, but if it can be done kind of programmatically, it's a hiding place at the moment, because lots of programs don't have visibility into process launches or memory inside the Linux instance, or the file system can have different sensors required.
I wonder at what point popular Windows programs will require or encourage WSL2 for improved, enhanced, whatever functionality.
Yeah, or will Windows ever actually require that in the future? I, as a longtime Unix site, Unix user, Unix developer back in the day, I love the fact that Linux mostly, but Unix is taking over, or has taken over so much. And it's why I mostly use Macs, is because it's I got my bash prompt and a decent UI around it. So
yeah.
But I've got a lot of friends, or a number of folks who are like, John, with WSL2, like using a Windows box as your primary box is not the Cygwin that you used to do.
It's not your father's Cygwin.
Right. So anyway, so that was my first one. I think the one of the final comment on that previous one is that with the increasing complexity of some of the newer samples, including the latest couple, they said they actually have live bot tokens for command and control over Telegram, and that, if there was an active command and control infrastructure, it would be a concern. So something to look at. All right, my second article is actually a Microsoft article about a number of things that they detected abusing OneDrive by a quote, previously undocumented Lebanon-based activity group Microsoft Threat Intelligence Center tracks as Polonium. So it says the associated indicators and tactics were used by the OneDrive team to improve detection of attack activity and disable offending actor accounts. Microsoft has suspended more than 20 malicious OneDrive applications created by Polonium users or Polonium actors, notified affected organizations, and deployed a series of security intelligence updates that will quarantine tools developed by Polonium operators. So, interesting article. It's quite a long article, and at the bottom of it, if you go to the article and want to go all the way down, and they have lists of the indicators of compromise, the IP addresses they were seen communicating with for the command and control infrastructure, that kind of thing. But for sort of the high level stuff here, it says that they says MSTIC, the Microsoft Threat Intelligence Center, assesses with high confidence that Polonium represents an operational group based in Lebanon. We assess with moderate confidence that the observed activity was coordinated with other actors affiliated with Iran's Ministry of Intelligence and Security, based primarily on victim overlap and commonality of tools and techniques. Such collaboration or direction from Tehran would align with a string of revelations since late 2020 that the government of Iran is using third parties to carry out cyber operations on their behalf, likely to enhance Iran's plausible deniability. So, interesting. And they have more info down there, but I didn't pull out all the quotes. But a lot of stuff targeting Israel. In fact, so it says, since February 2022, last couple months, Polonium has been observed primarily targeting organizations in Israel with a focus on critical manufacturing, IT, and Israel's defense industry. And that, in at least one case, Polonium's compromise of an IT company was used to target a downstream aviation company and law firm, in a supply chain attack that relied on service provider credentials to gain access to the targeted network. So, being able to, if you compromise a supplier that is a supplier to multiple other companies, and you can pivot and get creds for the downstream companies, that's the notion there, and called out in this one at least. Mm-hmm. Other interesting things about this is that it says they've been observed deploying a series of custom implants that use cloud services for command and control, as well as data exfiltration. So it makes sense with it says they use OneDrive and Dropbox, and that they're not actually persisting in the cloud for the actual malware itself. I don't think I pulled out this quote, but it said that, basically if the process was killed, it'd have to be restarted. They don't have persistence, so it would have to be restarted remotely. But so it says that if the malware was hosted on the OneDrive account, Microsoft Defender antivirus detections could block it, but instead they're interacting with the cloud service in the same way a legitimate customer would, basically using API calls. And they talked in here, I didn't pull this all out, but about how they had clearly gotten access to tokens and the ability to create refresh tokens for access to cloud services. And they talked about the Graph API and the other ways that they were interacting with Microsoft's cloud. But the final thing I pulled out of this that I thought was interesting, and they say Let me just read this quote. While we continue to pursue confirmation of how Polonium gained initial access to many of their victims, MSTIC notes that approximately 80% of the observed victims beaconing to graph.microsoft.com were running Fortinet appliances. This suggests, but it does not definitively prove, that Polonium compromised these Fortinet devices by exploiting this particular vulnerability to gain access to the compromised organizations. So, once again, especially for your edge devices, if they're compromised and you can get access to a token, and then you can get access to, you can create refresh tokens off of that. Not good. Not good. So, a long article, but an interesting one in my opinion. So, that was my second one.
All right.
How about something fun?
Want some fun?
I do like fun.
I will quote our buddy Dan, because he commented on my something fun article. I, for one, welcome our new mutant tree ent overlords. So there's the joke quote. Thanks, Dan.
I do like ents. Ents are cool.
But this one is actually kind of cool. It's lab-grown wood. So the article kind of starts out, the irony of the world is that almost every Save the Forest meeting and conference room happens inside a well-furnished room that is decorated with furniture made by cutting trees. Right? I was not aware of this, but the market for wood-derived products was $631 billion in 2021 and expected to be up to $900 billion by 2026. We cut down, I don't remember, the article said 15 billion acres of trees a year, something. I don't remember the exact number, so don't quote me on that one. But anyways, this is a team of researchers at MIT that have lab-grown timber, and they can use it to replace some of this deforestation driving the products that use real wood. And they've actually developed this technique where they can grow wood in any shape or size. So if you need a new wooden chair, you can create it in the lab without cutting a single tree. And there's a lot more detail about how they use stem cell-like properties of normal plant cells and started messing with them. But then the cool part here was the researchers were actually able to effectively 3D print custom designed structures out of the cells cultured in the gel using a 3D bioprint method.
That's pretty cool.
So you
can print a wood chair.
Yeah.
I love it.
And the fascinating thing here is that lab printed wood is incubated in the dark. So not only can they grow lab wood in the lab, it grows twice as fast as a regular tree, and it doesn't need to be out in the sunlight. It can be in the dark. Anyways, I thought it was fun. You should read the whole thing. There's some other stats about the 3D bioprinting techniques and how they can use it, and current estimates, for example, in the furniture making process is about 30% of the total wood to make it furniture is waste. I'm sure we don't put it to waste. There's pressboard and sawdust is used for other things, but
I have a scrap bin for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And
so rapid follow up. It says every year humans cut down about 15 billion trees.
Okay, 15 billion trees.
That's the 15 billion number.
Got it. All right. So this was a fun article. I thought that was kind of cool. It's really in the early stages, so you can't go buy a bioengineered chair yet. But maybe at some point in the future, this will be... Do you need something of a specific shape? Go 3D print a chair, and 6 months later, you'll have whatever grown. Which will be faster than the current supply chain issues.
For some things.
For some
Yeah,
things.
I mean, obviously another question would be like, okay, so how much energy does it cost? Like,
Oh, they do talk about that. Less
really?
energy. Yes, there is some notes in there about it actually takes less energy to do this, since they can do it in the dark. They don't need power or electricity. It's just natural growth, So, anyways, there are a few comments about that in thing. Is the last quote that they pulled out is from the researchers. The idea is you can grow these plant materials in exactly the shape you need, so you don't need to do any subtractive manufacturing after the fact, which reduces the amount of energy and waste. So there you go.
That will be interesting. That will be cool. That's cool. That's something fun, man. That's awesome.
That's my something fun.
Okay.
Bring on the tree ants.
All right. All right. I don't think that I have done this as my something fun yet, but I've seen a number of things about it, and Randall Monroe, the guy who does XKCD, tweeted a picture today. So he must have gotten early access to. What is this? This is DALL-E 2. So it's on OpenAI.com. It's a AI art generator. So you type a sentence, a phrase, and it will respond by generating prints of that. And so there's a demo. We'll put a link in the show notes to the demo. It's on, but you can probably just go to openai.com and get to the DALL-E 2 and demos. But some interesting stuff here. So, like, if you go to the actual demos, like their first example is, an astronaut riding a horse in a photorealistic style. And so there you go. And they do let you change it. So in the style of, an astronaut riding a horse in the style of Andy Warhol. And it gives you several options.
Right.
So remember this person does not exist, right? I mean, generated human looking faces. Yeah. This is, a similar sort of thing, except that you tell the AI what it is that you're trying to do. So you want teddy bears mixing sparkling chemicals as mad scientists as a 1990s Saturday morning cartoon. There you go. Or as digital art. There you go.
I think they could just pull from Care Bears. Isn't that about the same? Did you just describe the Care Bears there?
In steampunk. Oh, look at that. Teddy bears mixing sparkling chemicals as mad scientists in a steampunk style. That's pretty cool. There's some good photos there. But anyway, and there's other things, you can it says DALL-E 2 can make realistic edits to existing images from a natural language caption, add and remove elements while taking shadows, reflections, and textures into account. So you have a scene, and then you can like say, they have a little sample thing where they're like, add a flamingo here, and so it'll take the scene and then add a flamingo, and when you try and put it in the water, it puts the shadow and stuff like that. I mean, it's interesting. So, what was I going to say? Oh, so what Randall Monroe tweeted today was a image where he had said, Colorado tourism posters, and so this is the photo that I'll put as the show notes. But the comment was, AI makes beautiful looking photos. So clearly there's, it's got a lot of tourism posters in its training set, whatever else. And it knows what to do, except that the AI can't spell. So,
of all the things you think an AI should be good at,
you might think that, but it's got I don't know. So yeah, it says Colado, Colocando, Colanido. Let's see, what's that bottom one? It's kind of cut off. Colorado, Coldo Todd. Anyway, so I try, they've got a waiting list for people to sign up where this isn't open to the public yet, or for anything. So I did sign up to see if I can get on the waiting list, and maybe they'll eventually let me in. That would be fun. But anyway, I think this is cool. It's interesting to think of what's gonna be possible in the very near future. And then the final thing I guess I'll say about this is that they've got some interesting stuff on their web, the web page for the sign up of everything else, of things they're trying to do to make it safe, or as safe as possible, which is why they're kind of have a limited people being introduced to it at the moment. They're trying to kind of cut down some of the edge cases, make sure there's no violent or symbolism in the training set that is, would create problematic outcomes or outputs, that there's filtering and other things for the text that goes into it. I'm sure that many people are trying to do, bad things to trick it at the moment as well. And, so, and trying and avoid bias as much as possible, which is interesting. So, but anyway, yeah, it's a very AI heavy show tonight, perhaps. But here's another bit of AI.
Good stuff.
It's coming.
Yep.
Our AI ent overgrown, lab grown ent overlords.
My middle daughter still is very polite to the Roomba, and she always tells us, when the robots take over the world, Roomba will remember me, and I will be safe, and the rest of you will be dead.
Well, you're not actively mean to the Roomba.
No. No.
So, but yeah, be nice.
Mm-hmm.
Be nice. Anyway.
All right, dude.
All right. Have a good evening, and I will talk to you later.
You too. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.